Hello all and welcome to The Big Story, where we discuss the hottest topics of the day right here in the heart of the newsroom. I'm Haryanto, coming to you live from the Straits Times. Now we are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube, so be sure to comment, like and share, and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel. While you are at it, remember to hit the bell button as well to be alerted of our videos. Now I'll be joined by my newsroom colleagues to talk about the stories that got you talking today. Now for our first segment, efforts to curb the dengue epidemic have been stepped up. Now Sembawang GRC and the National Environment Agency say they are doing everything they can to stop the transmission of dengue. In particular, the area around Woodlands Avenue 6, where a total of 360 people have been infected in 2 dengue clusters, which are currently the largest in Singapore. Now 3 other large clusters were found in Geylang, Chai Chee and the Thomson area. How worrying is this epidemic? Now, what more can we do to stop the spread of dengue? I have with me right here Senior Health Correspondent Salma Halik to tell us more. Welcome, Salma.
Thank you, Haryanto.
Now, Salma, dengue can be said as endemic, right? And it's a perennial issue. Yes. Why are we paying extra attention to it now? You know, is it a real threat now more than ever?
Okay, what's been happening is that we had 2 fairly low infection years. The last 2 years, so there have been 2,000, 3,000 per year. But this year, for the last 10 to 12 weeks, it's been going up, up, up. So about 3 months ago, it was 100 and something infections a week.
Yep.
This month, it's been over 400 a week. You know, so that's a bit scary.
Yeah.
And to date, I think 5,700 people have been infected. That's more than for either 2017 or 2018.
Right, right.
And nobody wants to be sick.
Yeah, of course.
So although dengue is endemic, you know, the latest study shows that roughly 1 in 3 people who are infected, end up in hospital. And they're there for 3 or 4 days. Not comfortable.
Yeah. And of course, Salma, earlier on when we were talking backstage as well, you mentioned that there's some good news.
Yes.
Yeah?
Last week, the numbers fell.
Okay.
By 31. So there were 436 cases, 31 fewer than the previous week.
Right.
But don't get too optimistic.
Yeah, should we still worry then?
Of course you should still worry, because 400 and something people being infected a week is a lot. Okay, we are talking about, what, 70 people every day who get infected. And the ones that are reported are the serious ones.
Yeah.
So there are other people who have minor symptoms. Those are not reported because they don't go and see a doctor.
Right.
So to have more than 400 people fall seriously ill every week, it's quite serious. Yeah. We have to wait and see whether the downtrend continues or whether this is just a blip.
Yeah. And of course, you know, is it possible, just to ask you, right? Is it possible to have a 0-case dengue?
I wish I could say yes, but no, I'm afraid not.
Yeah.
Dengue is spread by the mosquito, and we've got lots of mosquitoes here, lots of Aedes mosquitoes. Singapore is an open country, so even if everybody here doesn't have dengue, somebody will come in with it. The mosquitoes will come over with the virus, so it's not something we can stop. It's too endemic in the whole Southeast Asian region.
Having said that, of course, Salma, you know, all hope is not lost, right? There are still steps that can be taken by the individual to mitigate the whole situation, you know, to make it better. We know that, you know, some of the things like do not leave your vases with still water and all that. What more can we do at the individual level then?
Right. Okay, you're right. Being bitten by a mosquito is not a problem. Being bitten by a mosquito that carries the dengue virus is the problem. So you're talking actually about 2 groups of people. Say if you got infected by dengue and you are sick with it, make sure you don't get bitten again. Because if the mosquito bites you, it'll then inherit sort of the virus from you, and the next person it bites, the next 1, 2, 3 person it bites, it could pass that virus onto that person. And obviously, the next person it bites is going to be not too far away, and that's probably someone in your family or your neighbors. So if you've got dengue, make sure you don't get bitten again, so that the mosquitoes in your house, in your area, do not carry the virus.
You know, it's funny, Salma, when you mention all these examples, you always contextualize it in a home.
Yes.
Why? Why is the home a perfect place, as it were, for the breeding of mosquitoes?
Because unfortunately, when NEA goes around looking for breeding sites, more than half, about I think 60%, of the breeding sites were found in homes. And everybody knows what to do, but unfortunately, the mosquitoes are smart. Okay, so when they say that a lot of breeding spots were found in pails, you're not talking about pails of water. People turn their pails upside down to get rid of the water, but on the rim of the pail, that little bit there's a little bit of water.
And it's possible?
That's possible.
Oh my goodness.
Half a teaspoon, that's all it needs for the larva to breed, a 20-cent coin.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful, like these little nooks and crannies, wherever half a teaspoon of water can be found, that is a breeding ground for mosquitoes.
I tell you another spot. A lot of toilets, you have these toilet brushes. So you put your brush down, and then the bottom, sometimes the brush drips water, and then you get a little bit of water there. That's enough.
My goodness, my goodness. So for those of you, of course, at home, make sure that these are the little spots, right, that you have to be wary of. It just takes, like what Salma said, it just takes half a teaspoon of still water for the mosquitoes to breed. That is really a cause of concern, really. And so make sure that it's not just about overturning your pail of water, a big pail of water, just little spots like that.
Make sure that the rim doesn't contain water either. The flower pot, the plates under the flower pots.
So best is to make sure to keep these areas as dry as possible as you can.
And we're helping ourselves because we are keeping ourselves healthy.
Yeah, definitely. Once again, thank you, Salma, for coming onto the show to tell us more about the case of the epidemic here in Singapore. And of course, for more stories on the dengue fever, you can visit our website at www.straitstimes.com. Now, moving on to the second segment, football fans, wouldn't it be exciting to have the highly anticipated once in 4 years World Cup hosted here in this region? Now, no worries about spending on hefty flight tickets or having to spend hours travelling across the world just to catch your favourite team compete for the coveted trophy. Social media has been abuzz with frenzied discussions on the feasibility of an ASEAN World Cup after Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha announced on Sunday that Southeast Asian countries will jointly bid to host the World Cup in 2034. Now, he made the declaration after meetings between leaders at the ASEAN Summit in Bangkok. An ASEAN World Cup will be a boost to the region on numerous fronts, but a number of issues need to be addressed before a realistic proposal can be put forward. Now, to tell us more, I have with me correspondent David Lee. Welcome, David.
Hi, Harianto.
So, David, how likely is this idea of having an ASEAN World Cup?
Okay, in the world of football, never say never. The last World Cup and the one before it, the next World Cup rather, were awarded to Russia and Qatar. Both countries have never hosted the World Cup before. And next year's European Championship will be co-hosted by 12 countries. So it is not a stretch to say that novelty appeals to FIFA. So it's entirely possible that ASEAN may host the World Cup one day, whether it's 2034 or beyond, if it manages to convince FIFA with a sound bid. But of course, an ASEAN bid for 2034, I think, will surely meet with stiff competition from China and Australia.
And of course, David, because it is going to be co-hosted by the different countries in the ASEAN region, right? How would this work, seeing that it's a collective effort for all the countries? Logistical-wise, is it going to be difficult and all that?
Right. First of all, I think it will take a lot of political will and teamwork to make this happen, because right now in ASEAN, there are 10 member countries. So obviously, there will be obstacles to overcome, like you mentioned. First of all, are all 10 ASEAN countries involved, or will it involve only those who meet the certain requirements, like, for example, existing capabilities, for example, stadium with a capacity of at least 40,000. If stadium capacity is a key requirement, that will rule out Brunei, Laos, and the Philippines, for example, for now. Because they don't have such facilities. Then there are other criteria that each host country need to fulfill, such as ample training facilities, accommodation options, and good travel connectivity. For example, my colleague Salma, off air, made a good observation that besides traveling by land and air, fans can actually travel by sea within ASEAN. So these are some considerations, and of course there will be those who will question, Does this mean that if Singapore are one of the co-hosts, they will qualify and play in the World Cup for the first time? So far, every host of the World Cup have automatically qualified for the World Cup. But even in an expanded World Cup of 48 teams, Asia is allocated only 8 spots. So already it's impossible for all 10 ASEAN countries to play. So unless ASEAN countries improve drastically, because no ASEAN country has ever qualified for the World Cup before. Dutch Indies in 1934 doesn't count.
Doesn't count,
So I don't think ASEAN will get more than one slot where our standards are currently, which I feel that one slot could be decided by a regional competition like the Suzuki Cup, for example. So looking to Euro 2020 again, not all of the 12 co-hosts will qualify anyway, so I don't think it would be a deal breaker.
Right, and of course for those of you who are watching, you saw snippets of David, who actually covered the World Cup in Russia last year. You experienced it firsthand, you know, the buzz and how exciting it is. And you've of course mentioned about the challenges as well. That said, you know, having experienced firsthand the World Cup fever, you know, do you think, you know, with these challenges, it is then worth it to host the World Cup?
Right, if you look at the example of Russia and how misunderstood the country was before the World Cup and what it showed to the world, what it's really all about, the beauty and the charm and all that, I think it's worth it. Hosting the World Cup would raise ASEAN's global standing and create a true sense of community within the region. So hosting a World Cup cost Brazil and Russia in the region of 15 billion US for them to host. In recent years, the advantage of co-hosting a World Cup means not one country would have to shoulder such a large financial outlay. Other than that, the tangible rewards from hosting the World Cup are a boost to the tourism sector and infrastructure improvements such as roads and transport facilities, which are bound to be improved in countries that host the World Cup. More than that, I think hosting a World Cup will showcase ASEAN's charm and culture to the rest of the world.
Definitely, you know, the plans for this ASEAN World Cup it's still in its nascent stages, right? And you know, discussions are still ongoing, and of course, if it does happen, it will most likely be for the 2034.
That would be the earliest.
That would be the earliest, definitely. Once again, thank you, David, you know, for coming onto the show to share with us more on how likely it is that that we'll see an ASEAN World Cup. Now, earlier on, of course, for the first segment, we had senior health correspondent Salma Halik to share with us more on the dengue fever and what one can do to mitigate or prevent from getting infected. And then earlier on, of course, we had David to share with us more on the possibility of an ASEAN World Cup in 2034. So once again, thank you, David, for coming on to the show. That is all we have for you today. Once again, I'm Haryanto. Of course, for more news and videos, you can head on to our website at www.straitstimes.com. Join us tomorrow, same time, for more stories on The Big Story.